Hello and welcome back. So today I am attempting to cycle up the steepest, most challenging road in Britain. So there are two roads which are connected. They are Wrynose Pass and Hardknott Pass, and they are both in the Lake District, which is a very nice place to cycle. I headed up there for a few days and thought I would take on this challenge. Both climbs are near Lake Windermere. I was staying on the east side of the lake and the climbs are on the west, so due to where I was, the first one which I reached was Wrynose Pass. Both Wrynose Pass and Hardknott Pass actually reach the same point, you're just climbing the mountain from a different direction, so both of them are pretty hard. People generally say Hardknott Pass is slightly more difficult, but that's like saying it's a 9.5 out of 10 instead of like a 9. So both of them are extremely challenging climbs. Right, so let me take you through the stats of Wrynose Pass. If you look into the sky, you can see it yourself. If you haven't noticed it, you can drag this video around because it's in 360 degrees. Anyway, Wrynose Pass is 2.5 kilometers long, elevation gain is 277 meters, but the really hard part here is the average grade, which is 13.8%, and that is pretty brutal. The top 500 meters are pretty flat as well, so the average grade is probably steeper than that. There are points on this climb where you reach up to 25-30%, and what I think was the most difficult thing about this is that those gradients aren't on hairpins. It's 25% up a straight road at points, which is really quite difficult. So the segment started officially a few seconds ago where we passed that cattle grid, and you can see straight away the gradient is really hard. It's already 10%. I'm going to tell you about the gearing I'm running. I have a 1x, and on the front specifically for this trip I changed it to a 36 tooth. Normally I run a 40, but with gradients like this I figured I needed a 1:1 ratio. So 36 on the front, 36 on the back. Hopefully that'll be enough for me to grind my way to the top. But as you can see, it's already 9% and I'm already in my biggest, well, easiest gear. At the moment, when it's around 9%, I'm managing to keep the cadence relatively high at around 75. Ideally, I think I should have gone even smaller on the front, perhaps like a 34 or a 32, but coming up to this hairpin here, you can see the gradient really goes up 22%, and this is just the start. I feel like gradients are much easier when they're on a corner because I don't know how they measure the actual gradients, but on the edge of the corner it's always shallower, but later on it's just a straight road and there's nowhere to hide. The power, so far I've averaged 350 watts up this climb. I set that up so that it started when I crossed the cattle grid and started this segment officially, but my FTP at the moment is around 310 watts. Whether or not that is true is gonna be found out on this climb, I guess. I'm currently training for the Dragon Ride Fondo, so that involves a lot of climbing, which is why I came out to the Lake District. I thought I need to see how good I can actually climb. The power is alright at the moment, but the weight is still my biggest problem. When I started training in around February, March time, I was 96, 97 kilograms. But I have lost about 5 kilograms. At the moment I'm between 92 and 93, so I'm just above 3.2 watts per kilogram. But my problem is that not only am I heavy, my bike is also pretty heavy. I'm running an aluminium Trek Domane AL3 and that weighs about 10 kilograms. With my camera, my bike computer, my bottles, everything like that, it's probably about around a 12-13 kilogram bike. So I am hauling around 105 kilograms up this climb, which, as you can see, is not the easiest thing in the world. I've got about a month before the Dragon Ride, so hopefully I can lose another 2 or 3 kilos. If I can get under 90 before race day, I'll be very happy. So I'm about a quarter of the way up the climb and my average power has dropped down a bit. It's leveled off a bit, so I'm only having to put out around 250 watts here, which is quite a nice rest. But straight away the gradient goes up again. Like, The average is 13.8, so I know that on this climb there are going to be points where the gradient is just ridiculous, but so far so good. I feel quite comfortable holding around 320 watts, but I know later on the gradient isn't going to be the problem, it's going to be the cadence, because it's easy to spin out the power, but when you're grinding away at like 50 RPM, that's when it's all about just muscle power, really. It's not really so much about your cardio, it's just about getting the power through the pedals. So it's not only the gradients I had to suffer with today, I actually had a slightly annoying headwind. It's about 2-3 meters per second. It's not really that bad, but when you're climbing up something as hard as this, everything that is going against you will make it feel a lot worse. So yeah, just getting my excuses in early. So rather optimistically, I was planning to climb up Wrynose Pass and then descend the other side and then climb up Hardknott Pass, and I figured Wrynose Pass would be somewhat of a warm-up, and I really didn't expect it to be as hard as it was. You can read about like 30% gradients, but until you do it you really have no idea. Hello sheep. It was pretty cool on this climb actually. There were just sheep all on the road, and on the descent I sort of scared some of them away. I was pretty much the only person on this road. That's probably because I went at like 6 AM. I was the only person on the top, that's for sure, but there were a few like caravans hanging out on the side of the road. I don't know what they were really doing. Some of them had bikes on the back, so maybe they were planning to cycle down the next day and then ride up again. But if you've never been to the Lake District, I would definitely recommend it, especially if you live in the UK. There is some really nice climbs, and most of them are a lot easier than this one. You've really got to go out of your way to find this one. It's sort of in the middle of nowhere. From Lake Windermere, it's around a half an hour cycle, but it's definitely worth it because there are no cars, no people. It is just good, fun countryside climbing. So yeah, nothing really to complain about in that regard. So it's getting a bit steeper here, 10%. I'm managing to keep the power pretty steady. Heart rate around 170, which is sort of like my threshold. I should be fine if it stays like this. Power average 314, not too bad. These roads are a bit sketchy though. I did find on the downhill it was very bumpy and it didn't feel particularly comfortable, especially on the edge. There's no like barrier or anything. If you overshoot a corner here, you're literally just going to fall down into the valley. So yeah, be careful when you're doing that. Make sure your brakes are well tuned and ready for some serious stopping. To be honest, I was pretty terrified coming down because there are points where you're just holding on, hoping the brakes will work. I really feel like I should have got a better gear ratio for this. This is actually ridiculous. I've probably spent like a minute outside of my easiest gear. So yeah, I should have had a few more. It is an excuse, I know, but I'm probably gonna have to come back at some point with easier gearing or at least less weight. I am really starting to struggle at this point. 22% it is right now, and I'm having to put out like 400 watts just to keep the bike moving. I'm going 7 kilometers an hour and my cadence is well below 60, so definitely not ideal. The thing is, if you have easier gearing you can just spin, but I didn't. So here it levels off, it's like 6%, and I'm having a well-earned rest. It's still uphill, so obviously you can't stop pedaling, but at this point 10% feels like a rest. I'm able to put out like 250 watts and it's just pure relief. But straight away back onto the pure steepness, and this is just awful. 20% in a straight line, it just saps your will. So I was coming into this ride pretty fresh. It was only like 20 kilometers to get here, so it's not like I've had miles and miles in the legs. I should be pretty ready for a strong effort. This is mainly practice for a climb called the Devil's Staircase, which is in the Dragon Ride, and that gets up to gradients like this. I don't think it's quite as difficult as this climb, but if I can't get up this on fresh legs, I am really starting to wonder whether I will be able to climb the Devil's Staircase in the Dragon Ride on legs that have like 100 miles in them. So yeah, this is really just a test for me to see if I am actually able to climb steep things. At this point it's 22%. I am pretty much on the edge. 47 is my cadence and I am just struggling to get it round. I did sit down for a bit and was just muscling it round, but that only lasts so long. I have to get out the seat again just because it is just too much. This bit really took it out of me because it's just the straight line, a straight road up the mountain. Put some switchbacks in to give the legs a rest or something. I'm having to put out 400 watts just to keep going, and it is too much for me. 21%. I am at this point pretty broken. At this point we're 11 minutes into the climb. My average power is 325 watts, which is pretty high for me. Max power 500, which, yeah, way too high. In an ideal world, you'd just smoothly climb this by spinning and you wouldn't have to spike your power like that, but when it gets so steep, you have to put that power down just to keep going. I'm getting pretty close to the top now. Once I finish this steep 20% section, there's a slight let off and then it gets really steep again. Mentally, I think this is what did me. I thought it would stay around this sort of difficulty, but once you cross this bridge, you see the road straighten out again, and then you think, what the hell have I got myself into? Because this is just pure ridiculousness. Even going over the bridge, I thought it let off, but it's still 22%, and damn, this is just not nice. Not nice at all. So around this point I actually start weaving. This isn't me deliberately trying to reduce the gradient, it's just me struggling to control the bike because I am really on the limit at this point. I just want it to be over. It levels out a bit, it goes down to about 15%, which is a slight rest because I can spin slightly more, but my cadence is just so bogged down. It's pretty much always below 60 RPM, and when you're doing that for a long time, you just feel the pain in your muscles. It's not even so much like in your heart and your lungs, it's just you get so much lactic building up and it just hurts. And this is the bit I was talking about earlier, where you go around the corner and you see this road when we go past this right hand bit, and it is just, you see it gets visibly steeper there, and I'm already at 19% and you can see it gets even steeper. So mentally I am wondering why this road exists, to be honest. And this was supposed to be the warm-up for the harder road, but on the upside there are some cute little sheepies here. Are they sheep or are they cows? Yeah, they're definitely sheep. And yeah, it's quite funny watching them all get terrified. They're probably like, why are you here? It's too early for this. But strangely, that kind of did motivate me. This is the final push, really, because it levels out. There's also some random people just leaving their vans here overnight. I don't know if they're like camping, caravanning or what, but it's a pretty secluded place. Like, you're not going to get bothered if you want to do your weird caravan things here. But yeah, anyway, last push, because it flattens out towards the top. The final 500 meters or so are relatively easy. You can see the peak is just at the end of the road. You can see this is the worst bit by far. This is the long straight road and it really does me in. Actually, this whole climb does me in. I've been going on and on about it, but it really isn't nice. I watch lots of people's videos about Hardknott Pass and Wrynose Pass, and to be honest, none of them really show how difficult it is. So I came into this thinking I would be able to do it. It would be hard, but I thought I'd be able to do it. But this is something else, it really is. If you've attempted these climbs, Let me know in the comments, let me know how you did, let me know what your gearing was, because that's quite interesting, and basically how much you weigh, because I figured, you know, 92 kilograms, a pretty heavy bike, I should be able to do this, but it turned out I was just right on the limit, all the way to the top. I'm having to get out of the saddle here, 320 watts, and my legs are dying, they really are. I'm just grinding it out. I'm going 5 kilometers an hour here, and it is really, really the end pretty much. The worst part is that I can see the top where it actually starts to level off. It's just right in the distance that you can see. That is the final push, but this is where it gets the steepest, because this bit is just pure insanity. I can't explain this climb to you. It is horrible, really horrible. 24% here. I am just grinding every little bit out. 25%, 27%. It is ridiculous. I'm doing 360 watts and it's just not enough. 5 kilometers an hour, 40 RPM, and this is me on the absolute limit. Definitely the hardest thing I've done. I would argue the hardest I've ever pushed myself on the bike, probably. 300, 400 watts, and I'm done. This is it. 30%, 34%, and it's over.
Oh, I can't do it. Can't do it. Oh my god. Too much. Oh, so close. It's just there.
So yeah, I ended up having to do the walk of shame, unclipping, and it was just too much for me. I was physically on the limit, and this bit is ridiculously steep. I think this is the steepest part of the whole climb. If this was at the beginning, I feel like I could have muscled my way through and then dealt with the easier bit, but unfortunately this bit is right at the end. You're already at your limit, and then you need to be able to just sprint literally this last little bit. There were points where my back wheel was slipping because the weight distribution was just wrong. Like, I was getting nothing through the back wheel if I wasn't planted, and yeah, not nice at all. Walk of shame, but I gave it my best shot. So given this was supposed to be the warm-up for Hardknott Pass, I obviously didn't even attempt that because I was pretty much spent at this point. There's no way I'm going to cycle down the other side of this pass and then try to climb up it again on legs that are terrible on a harder climb, because let's be honest, I would probably have to give up a lot earlier and just end up walking up the other side. But yeah, I will be back soon with a new attempt at this when I am lighter, hopefully. Give me another 5 kilograms off my body and I'm sure, I reckon I could make this one. It was horrible though, very horrible, and now I'm almost at the top. It levels off, a nice relaxing 14%. Can easily spin the legs here. God, this feels so easy compared to like 30% back there. I never thought I'd say 15% feels nice. 10% feels great, like 5% feels like nothing at this point. So I did have a bit of a break while I was walking. My average power obviously went down. It was about 225 before, and now, because I did no power for that moment, it's gone down to 280. But yeah, there's some guys on the left there. They drove up here with their bikes for some reason. But yeah, it's almost completely leveled off now. There are points where it's just like 0. And it's pretty much just relaxing to the top. I guess if you haven't had your break here, this is still going to be pretty hard, but it's definitely still a rest. So about 500 meters to go. There's one last little pinch at the end, but compared to the rest of this climb, it is nothing really. I've just completely lost all morale at this point. I'm just taking it really easy to get to the top. I definitely could have pushed a bit harder here, but once you've got off and pushed your bike, then you know you've lost all motivation really. I'm just getting to the top just to say that I've done it, and for the first time I've actually switched into an easier gear pretty much. My 24 tooth cassette got some use rather than the 36, which was quite nice. So in terms of all the climbs I've done while cycling, this is definitely the hardest. Just the steepness gets to you. If you have done both Hardknott Pass and Wrynose Pass, let me know if Hardknott Pass is actually that much more difficult, because I can't imagine it being so more difficult than this, to be honest. This was pretty much impossible for me. But yeah, I will be back lighter and stronger because I now have a personal vendetta against this climb. I am going to be back and I'm going to climb it much quicker. So I'm almost done here. The climb has taken me about 20 minutes. According to Strava, it took me 19 minutes and 47 seconds. I'm not sure where the official end point for this segment is, but I just wanted to get to the very top, which is where this camper van is. Yeah, final little push, 15%, 400 watts, just sprinting to the top here. I'm not actually sure where the segment officially starts either, so my timing at the top is probably wrong. So my time puts me around 4,700th out of 11,000, which is in the top half of people who have climbed. So I'm pretty happy with that actually, considering I had to get off and walk. Being in the top half is not too bad, especially because this isn't just a road you'd sort of come across on a daily ride. You actually have to be searching out this climb, so I reckon most of the people who have done this climb are pretty good at cycling. So to be in the top half is pretty good, I think. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this one. The descent is coming up, but I'm not going to commentate that, so if you want to see the descent of Wrynose Pass, be sure to give that a watch. If not, then thanks all for watching. I will see you in the next one. I have a few more Lake District climb videos coming out soon, so yeah, stick around for that. Like, subscribe, and watch the descent. Alright, see you next time. Bloody hell. I think I would rather walk down this bit than up it. This is sketchy. Nah. Terrified.